Hello friends, and welcome to another video from my series Quick Thoughts On, in which I always talk about different stories from the rich Star Trek universe. 30 years and a bunch of weeks ago, the next episode of Star Trek The Next Generation premiered. It was called Q-Who, and these are my honest opinions about it. Sorry if this is going to be slightly longer than usual, but I think there are simply way too many things which can and should be said about this episode. Back in late 1986, when Gene Roddenberry was asked to create a new Star Trek show, he hired many people who worked with him on the original 1960s TV show. The plan for the new Star Trek was same but different. Even though he hired mostly people he worked with before, he wanted the faces in front of the camera to be different from what the fans were expecting. That's why one of the earlier rules he came up with was that no previously established villains will return. He originally didn't want to have Klingons on the show, and when he later changed his mind, they had to be changed both on the outside and the inside. Their appearance was drastically different from what we have seen on the original show, and slightly different from what we have seen in the up to that point 4 Star Trek movies. Plus, they were no longer the enemies, but allies of the Federation. The show also couldn't use Romulans or Andorians or any of the other fan-favorite races, but the show desperately needed some recurring villains. That's why the Ferengi were created. They were planned to be the next big thing, until we have actually seen them for the first time in the first season episode The Last Outpost, and they failed. Horribly. Short people with butts on their heads were not intimidating, they were comic relief. So when the new showrunner, Maurice Harley, came in for the second half of the first season, he was given a hard task to create new, memorable villains. He came up with a very interesting race. They were basically huge insects. When Tracy Torme wrote his episode called Conspiracy, it was about an actual conspiracy in Starfleet, but when Roddenberry read the script he was shocked and refused to let such an episode be filmed. Starfleet was utopia. All of Starfleet officers were perfect, so they would never conspire. So Torme rewrote it and it became an alien parasite infestation type of story. It was great, I loved the episode, and after the rewrite they were planning to connect these parasites to the new bug creatures which were supposed to be the new main villain. Unfortunately, this never happened in the end. Right in the next episode, called The Neutral Zone, we have seen that both Federation and Romulan outposts on both sides of the Neutral Zone were destroyed by an unknown force. So season 1 ended with a cliffhanger, which got never resolved because the 1988 writers' strike happened, which means that even though Maurice Harley wanted to start season 2 with an epic 2-part story, in which the Romulan race should be destroyed and we should be introduced to the biggest villain ever, the space bugs, we instead got no explanation what happened with the outposts. We lost Dr. Crusher off screen, we get introduced to Dr. Pulaski, and we have watched a recycled script from the unproduced series called Star Trek Phase 2. But after the strike ended, Maurice was finally free to write his epic story, with 2 major exceptions. No destruction of Romulans, that had to wait until the 2009 J.J. Abrams reboot, and after the producers made some estimations how much the space bugs would cost to build and show in every episode, he wasn't allowed to use them at all, so in his last effort, he created a brand new enemy race, a race of cybernetic organisms or cyborgs named the Borg. This is the story in which they were introduced. Wow, that was a long intro, but I finally got to this episode. The story starts with a very strange and long scene, introducing us to Sonia Gomez. She was a new officer in engineering, and by the way in which they introduced her, it is absolutely clear that she was supposed to be a new regular character. Unfortunately, she appeared only in 2 episodes, as far as I can remember, and then got silently written off the show for unknown reasons. At least I think it was, unfortunately, because I kind of liked her, and I absolutely understand that not everybody will like a mix of the socially awkward nerd stereotype and the comic relief, but in my opinion, she had a lot of something, for lack of a better word, let's call it charm. The only important thing she did in this opening scene was that she squirted her hot personal liquid all over Captain Picard's manly body, and that she used her hands to wipe it all over his body, including his private area. If that sounds dirty, good. Picard goes to change his uniform when he suddenly is in a shuttle piloted by the good old Q. When Mr. Q gets them back on board, they end up in 10 Forward, where Q has a little incident with Guinan because Whoopi Goldberg also wanted to be in this episode. It looks like they know each other for centuries, and Q claims that she is much more dangerous than they think. So she's centuries old and dangerous? Could we please get a Guinan show, Mr. Kurtzman? Please? I'd actually watch that. Anyway, Q is bored, kicked out of the Q continuum, and wants to join the Enterprise crew. Picard is a little bit arrogant, to be honest, and claims that they don't need him, because whatever they can meet in space, they will be able to deal with it. So to prove them wrong, Q throws the Enterprise to another part of the galaxy, where they meet a sinister-looking huge cube. A cube belonging to the best villains the Next Generation introduced to us, the Borg. Picard calls up a meeting where he invites also Guinan. Her race was actually wiped out by the Borg, not the only El-Orians, that's the name of her race, who survived were those who were not on their home planet. So Guinan strongly recommends to get the insert swear word out of there. Well, her warning actually made sense, because Geordi soon meets an intruder in the engine room, and we see our first Borg ever, and, well, high definition wasn't very nice to them. When I watched it on my tiny little CRT screen, the Borg looked terrifying. Now when I watch the Blu-ray on my HD TV, it's very clear that these are guys in rubber suits with some electronic toys attached to them. A pity, but well, in 1989 nobody expected that the 2000 home video standard will be much better. And as I said, these guys look terrifying on the old Video Master shown on a tiny CRT TV and watched by a 10-year-old. There is also one other thing. The scenes in the engineering looked different when I was looking at them right now, so I compared the scenes with the same scenes from the DVD, and they are completely different takes. Why? I have no clue, but it's clearly different. And no, the comparison video will not be on my channel. I tried to upload it and it was blocked worldwide before it went public, so you know. Picard tries to talk to the intruder, but Q appears and claims that these drones don't care about them, they just care about the technology. When the drone starts to mess with the computers, Worf shoots him, but it's not important. The first Borg dies, but immediately a second one beams in. And this one can't get shot because he has a personal shield, which the phaser can't penetrate. Penetrate. When the drone eventually leaves, it takes the corpse of the first drone with it too, and they have a real problem now. If you can't talk with the enemy and you can't shoot them, what can you do? They have another meeting, which is interrupted by the Borg basically telling them that they're screwed. The Borg also catch the Enterprise in a weird force field and decide to cut a slice of the Enterprise's saucer section, killing 18 crew members. Picard gets pissed and orders Worf to shoot. Finally, after a couple of shots, the Enterprise breaks loose and they have another meeting. God, they have more meetings than an IT company. Does Starfleet use Scrum or something? Anyway, the result of this meeting is that Riker, Data and Worf will beam to the Borg cube to find out something more about them. Guinan is the only one who has some kind of logical thinking, so of course she thinks it's a dumb idea. But in this part of the episode, the crew must still behave in a very arrogant way, so of course they pay them a visit. And we see again something what looked much better on the old Videomaster and looks much worse on the Blu-ray. We see the inside of the Borg ship. The original version included an absolutely beautiful matte painting, but it has been replaced by a much worse looking 3D CGI model. Anyway, we get to know a lot about Borg. Well, unfortunately they have completely changed it in the future episodes. The Borg are one collective mind, and they are connecting to it using alcoves in the wall. They also are born as humanoids, and immediately after birth they are surgically altered with technical gadgets. So in this early version of the franchise, there was still no assimilation that will come up in the next episode in season 3. As soon as they realize that the ship is regenerating, Picard beams them directly to the bridge and they try to fly away with maximum warp. But maximum is not enough. The Borg cube is following them, no matter how fast they fly. So how do they solve this problem? They can't outrun them, they can't fight them, so they are doomed. Thankfully Q returns, and after a small theatrical performance, and after Picard admits that they are helpless and that they need him, he saves them, sends the ship back to the original place, and then he leaves. Why? This to me is a very serious plot hole. He has done this whole thing because he wanted to become a member of the crew of the Enterprise. So why does he leave after they say that they need him? Or was it just some trick from Q? So what was Q's plan in the end? Basically, why did this whole episode happen? Well, at least in the end, Picard says to Guinan that the Federation will now have some time to prepare for when the Borg will come to Earth, and they of course definitely will in the final episode of season 3, but that's still a year away. Well, this is something what I haven't talked about in a while. A really great episode of the second season of Star Trek The Next Generation. In my opinion, this episode is almost perfect, and if it didn't end with a giant plot hole, I would probably give it a perfect rating. I unironically love this one. I also love the Borg. Despite them looking kind of silly in HD, they are actually both intimidating and scary in this early incarnation. I don't know why, but I always love slowly moving monsters, especially if they simply don't care about you as a person. You have no way how to talk your way out of this situation, just like you can't use violence against them. The fact that the crew of the Enterprise needed to be saved by Q, otherwise they would die, tells you everything you need to know about the Borg. Unfortunately, it has a bunch of small problems which make this episode feel like it needed one more rewrite, a simple script polish, and it could be basically perfect. On my standard scale from 0 to 10, where 0 is complete garbage, 10 is a masterpiece, and 5 is just average, I would give this episode 9 out of 10. It's almost perfect. But as always, these were just my opinions. Let me know what did you think about this episode. Did you love it or hate it? Let me know down in the comment section. If you like this video, please hit that thumbs up button, and see you in a couple of days with a video about the next episode of Star Trek The Next Generation called Samaritan Snare. If I remember correctly, it sucked. Thank you very much for watching, and see you soon. Bye.